Well, I want to welcome everybody to our Resident and Family Support Council. One of the things I'm going to ask you to do is if you could drop your zip code into the chat box. And also if you're watching with more than one person, if you could tell us how many people you're watching with, especially if you're a facility that has brought a bunch of residents together, and or if you're family members and there's a couple of you listening or watching, go ahead and put how many people you've got inside the chat as well, along with your zip code. That way then we can track to see exactly who is participating in these meetings. And then at the end of the meeting today, I will be posting a poll to be able to find out we have two quick questions that we ask at the end. So if you could please stay on to answer those questions, that would be really helpful. So I want to welcome everybody to the Resident and Family Support Council meeting. We have these meetings on the 2nd and the 4th Tuesday of every month at 3 o'clock. And if you're interested in getting an invitation directly into your email box, please feel free to email me. I'll go ahead and I'll drop my email into the chat box in just a second. And so please feel free to reach out at any time and share the news with other people. We want to try to continue to increase the attendance at these meetings. The purpose of the meeting is so that those who live in long-term care facilities can get the support that they need, that they want, and that they deserve. And so we're also posting these meetings to YouTube, which is why I am recording it right now. I also would like to take a moment just to thank the Illinois Pioneer Coalition. They are the ones who provide the Zoom account for us to be able to use so that we could host these meetings for everyone. So thank you, Illinois Pioneer Coalition, for providing us with this. Before we begin today, I just would like to introduce Kelly Richards. Kelly, are you on here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. I just want to introduce Kelly. She's got some really exciting news that she wants to share with us.
Thank you, Lee. Yeah, I'm super excited. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kelly Richards, the state ombudsman, and I'm happy to be here this afternoon. Just wanted to share a few things with you all. We have some exciting news that actually came out of the White House last week. The White House issued a fact sheet regarding nursing home reform, and this fact sheet in the nursing home reform is the boldest and most thorough set of reforms that have been issued in a decade. And so I just wanted to let you all know about that. I'm going to drop the link to the fact sheet in the chat in a second. And then the governor's office also issued a press release last week after the president spoke last Tuesday. And his press release was in support of what the president had spoke about as it relates to nursing home reform. And some of the things that is outlined in this fact sheet focuses in on quality and accountability. There's an emphasis on minimum staffing standards, focusing in as it relates to accountability on poor performers, accountability specifically for owners. They are looking at private equity companies to see where the money is. They're focusing in on improving environmental changes to support, promote single occupancy rooms, increase sanctions on providers, and better transparency for consumers. The other thing that I want to mention to you all is that the National Ombudsman Resource Center is going to be putting out information for various call to actions as it relates to nursing home reform. So as soon as we get that information, Lee and or I will share that information with you all at one of these meetings to let you all know if there's letters that you all can write in support of this, or if you can send an email to specific people. As we get that information, we definitely will share. So I just wanted to stop by to share that information, and I'll drop it into the chat now. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks so much, Kelly, for sharing. It really is exciting that we're getting, the nursing homes are finally getting the attention that they really do deserve from the federal and the state government. So it's a wonderful thing to see. So today we're going to be talking about residents' rights. as a citizen and as a facility resident. To have this conversation with us today is Candice Mitchell. We're very thrilled that Candice is joining us to be able to talk about this. Candice is actually the regional ombudsman for the Evanston area, Evanston, Illinois. And we're really excited that she could be a part of this conversation today and really share what it means, to be able to, you go into a nursing home and sometimes people feel like they lose all their rights, but we really don't. So Candice, can you start talking to us a little bit about all of this?
Yeah, I like that you said citizen, because we are all still citizens. When we enter nursing homes, we're still citizens of the United States. The nursing homes in the United States. So we still have duties, responsibilities, and privileges as citizens, whether we're at our home or in a home. So for that, we want to know that we have the right to vote still. We have the right to practice religion of our choice, and we have the right to social and community activities. Because what we want to know when we talk about the right to vote, we still are participants in our environment. So for instance, in the city of Evanston, I encourage our nursing home residents contact their alderman if they feel like they have some issues that they would like, advocacy for, representation for. I also have some homes here in Evanston that bring a community member in to speak at resident council meetings. And those are really great resident council meetings. So the person comes in and talks about Evanston specific local politics and initiatives, and also kind of breaks down in a nonpartisan way what it would, what the ballot might look like. What does this mean? People have a chance to talk about it and they feel really empowered. And these are some of the homes that just feel much more empowered because they still feel like they have that lifeline to their community. So it's important that we know that we have the right to vote. As Lee said, we don't lose our rights when we go into nursing homes. We actually gain rights because we have to have our original rights protected, plus the rights that come with being in a protected health environment in a protected group. So it's important to know that we actually gain rights. We do not lose rights.
So Candice, can you just talk a little, what this right to vote, if I'm in a nursing home, how do I go about doing that if I can't get out of the facility? What does that all
Here's
look
the
like?
thing, like you can do absentee vote. You can have the facility take you to the poll. If they're now that we're back past COVID, going to the poll, you want to make sure that you speak to your activity director. Usually it's the activity director who is the spearhead for voting initiatives, but also your social services director to make sure that you have the ID, to make sure that you have the paper requirements to vote. And you want to do that in advance so that you have that, but you absolutely have the right to vote and should continue to feel empowered to do so. So the community speaker, you can do absentee voting if you'd prefer, and just remember that voting is empowerment and it is your privilege and your responsibility to continue to be interactive in your world.
So I like what you're saying and with the activity director, because it does seem like it's typically is the activity director, maybe sometimes the social service person.
Yeah.
But typically the activity director. And I think that that's an important thing for activity directors to even ask upon admission when somebody comes into the building. Are you interested in continuing your right to vote for the general elections, for the national state elections that occur? And then that way to get that, get it start moving right away so that people don't wait till the last minute.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and activity directors, it is part of the assessment that they complete that they want to know if the resident has the compunction to continue voting, if they need the tools to continue, but all of that stuff is supposed to be talked at within the first 40 hours. So when you're creating that baseline care plan, you should be getting to know your, if you're an activity director, getting to know your residents and what they may need and making those little notes to yourself as far as really knowing when the next election is. And I was an activity director during the big one, the big election, the last presidential election. And boy, I was sweating up all night, just making sure that I had all my ducks in a row, because if somebody had missed their vote and the wrong guy won, I just would have felt personally, encumbered by that. So I made sure that we had everything in. The Cook County government was super accommodating and gave me excellent feedback, and they were just wonderful to get along with. And they said, wow, it's really good that you're making sure that you have all this stuff done in advance, because I got those voters registrations in immediately because everybody had to do the absentee ballot. So just if anybody needs help with that, if I have any activity directors on the line that I could help you with, reach out to me and I could tell you what I did to make sure that it was done in advance so that people got their vote, because that's really important. Also, on the day of the vote, they may not decide to vote that day. They may say, I just don't want to, but at least they have their paper, because you don't want them to have to decide at the last minute. So Thank you. And then the second one is the right to practice your own religion. It is not a majority rules culture. It doesn't matter if you're the only person that practices Judaism in a world of Catholics, you still have the right to practice your religion. And just as Lee said about voting, these are things that your activity director should be asking you as a resident during that assessment process. You're to be asked, do you want your church to contact you? Do you have a specific preference with regard to worship? Do you prefer to be alone? Do you prefer to be out of the facility? Do you need a specific television channel that has your favorite pastor on it? Like, all of these things are very important and should be taken very seriously. Your right to vote, your right to practice religion, and your right to social and community activities are just as important as your right to get medical care when you're in a facility. These are not ancillary or auxiliary or less than. These are as important as all the other things that you are to have when you're in a nursing home. So when you're practicing your religion, it's not just about getting the TV to a certain channel or being there on every Sunday. It could be things like, I want in my room, I want my religious icon, or I want to practice my dietary preferences with regard to my religion for this religious holiday. It could be music. It could be, again, holidays, it could be decor, it could be clothing. So, your facility should be providing as many accommodations as are reasonable, and also for you to feel comfortable practicing your own religion. You should never feel singled out in practicing your religion, or feel that you have to practice the dominant religion of the facility because it's the only game in town, because it really shouldn't be.
What if I am the only one in my facility who practices one particular religion? How can I make sure that I get the services or the spirituality that I need from my particular religion?
It's really important. Again, that baseline care plan and that initial activity assessment is so important. If you have a real, interdisciplinary team that can help from all angles with the residents, and say, okay, this resident is our only Jewish resident. We have to make sure that we educate ourselves on the high holidays. For instance, I worked in a facility that had 3 Jewish people and everyone else was Catholic. As I had said earlier, I made it a point as the activity director to learn the dates of the religious holidays, to learn what, culturally appropriate references, what to say, what not to say. Like, as activity directors, as staff members, these are important for us to be able to speak the language and meet our people where they are. So we have to educate ourselves, for instance, in any sort of religion or music preferences. How many times have I walked into a facility and they're playing, Pharrell or something that's like, the people don't know that. And I had said to people, your homework, when I was an activity director, your homework is to learn 5 songs from Frank Sinatra, because boy, you just can't go wrong, right? Like, or, who's another one? Rosemary Clooney. Just we need to know these references. We need to know this music. Just like with religion, we need to, whether we practice or not, we need to be able to be approachable so that our residents come to us and say, I really feel outnumbered here. Could you pray with me? Or could you, take me somewhere where I can pray with others if it's not something they want to do themselves? We really should be making these accommodations whenever possible so that people feel comfortable and free. This is their home, and these are things that they would do in their home. So we want to make sure that we make those available to them.
would I be able to have my own minister or my own rabbi come and visit with me in the building that I live in?
I feel, COVID, I know that for a while, COVID, it was difficult with COVID, but we are now exiting that crisis time whereupon we should be having our ministers in, if that's what we prefer. Maybe we don't want to go to church. Maybe we want the church to come to us. So, I've even seen whole youth groups come to visit, and then everybody could benefit, because who doesn't love, young kids singing songs? So, there's so many ways that a point person within the facility, whether it be the activity director, social services director, or someone else, could make a mutually symbiotic relationship between religion and our residents, so that it's a welcome environment for that. And it's also, perfectly acceptable to not practice a religion. And we need to be confident and conscious of that we're not going to force religion on someone if they are a-religious. We want to also make sure that we're not pushing any religion onto people. So we have the freedom to practice, we have the freedom not to practice, and we just have to kind of pivot where we can and really just encourage open discussion, and so that people can come to us when they have religious needs that are not being met, or when they change, they should feel free to come to us.
I've heard of facilities actually, asking that question on admission: what religion do you practice? Do you want to continue to practice at the, the service provider that you're going to? Do you want us to go to the same church? Do you want us to go to the same synagogue? Do you want us to contact them, let them know that you're here? Would you like us to seek out and see if maybe a volunteer from the church would like to come and see you? And I've heard of some of that, happening with people, which can be such a nice way to feel like you're still staying connected to the world that you had before you moved into this long-term care community, which can be so pivotal, because spirituality is so important to people, and that connectedness that you get to your church, your place of worship, it can really help make sure that you feel like you're maintaining that normalcy in your life, as you're pursuing this path of long-term care.
Absolutely. And it can also be really pivotal in those first 3 to 6 months when the adjustment period is so hard. Like we said, anything we have from our old life that we can bridge, particularly religion. People tend to get more spiritual in the long-term world. They're just, reflecting and thinking about, and there is all kinds of literature and groups about that. And that could be something that an activity director or a social services director could bring into discussion, or groups, just, meeting that, leg of our life where we start to become closer to spiritual ideals. And we really should encourage that when at all possible, and as quickly as possible, like Lee said, to ensure that is as smooth a transition as it's going to be, because it is sometimes rough, and that can sometimes just be the lifeline that people need.
Yeah, and you spoke about dietary needs that can happen as well. And I think that's an important thing for us to remember, that don't feel like you have to, as a resident in a long-term care facility, you've got to conform, like you were saying. You should speak up. Feel like you could speak up and say, I'm Catholic, it's Lent right now, I do not eat meat on Friday. I need alternatives that are not meat oriented, and that's what I need. So I think that that's important, that people understand that they have that right to speak up. They have that right to make sure that their spiritual, their religious beliefs are being adhered to. And those are just some really important, that it doesn't go away just because you're in a long-term care facility. It doesn't disappear for you.
Right. And we need to also remember that the dietary team is part of the interdisciplinary team. So we need to bring the dietary team into these discussions of, meeting residents' need, not just, lactose intolerant, but as you said, what religion doesn't eat after, 4 p.m. after sundown? What religion doesn't eat meat on Friday? Bringing all this into, so we really know not just their dietary preferences, but their religious dietary consideration. So they're different, but it's really nice when a dietary manager is like, oh, I know Mr. Swanson, he is, you know, this religion. I am intuitively supposing that he would probably want fish on Friday, or a PB&J like my mom used to have because she didn't like fish. So, you know, just like, it's really nice to get that. And also to just, again, feel like this is their home. This is what they would be eating at home. So we need to make sure that we're also providing this at their new home or their present home.
Thank you.
And then finally, we have social and community activities, because as much as we may like our home, sometimes we want to be out of our home, and sometimes we don't want to take our roommates with us. So there's this kind of push for resident outings, and we always feel like, oh, if we're leaving, we have to take all these people with us. And sometimes, you know, residents who are able-bodied, maybe they just want to go have poker with their friends, or maybe they want to go to a book club at the library, and that is perfectly within their rights. And also it can be a wonderful opportunity for them to get some space. We all need a little space. So when we have social and community activities, we would want to think about what people want to do, not just go on a Walmart trip or a sightseeing trip. Those are the easy things, and they're fine to do. But really, if you're an activity director in a home, when you're at these resident council meetings, really ask people, what do you want to do? Let's see how we can make that happen. Maybe a museum is really expensive, but maybe I'm going to see if I can get us some passes, or yes, we'll do that this month, and then we'll do something different this other month. And it's not just always bingo, and it's not just always McDonald's. We need to really think outside the box and make things special. So Lee and I were talking about looking at social and community activities, social communities inside the facility, art. How often is art's coloring pages? It's fine, but maybe it would be more enriching to do a paint by number, or, you know, a decoupage or something. So we've really got to stretch ourselves into thinking not just what would be easy for us or even easy for them, but what would be enriching. Maybe it'd be a little messy, but it's worth it to try. Maybe we ask people what they would like to do, and then once you get that relationship, then they'll tell you what they want to do, and then it could just be so wonderful, because then you'll never have to sit and think of an activity calendar again. It will just happen because you already know, you've already got a million ideas from the people. So the activity calendar is very important as far as social and community activities. So we want to think about not just with your own friends, but perhaps with the facility. We need to think about different, you know, options regarding free activities. There's so many great free activities we can do. Why don't we just take our lunch outside more often and have lunch outside? You and I leave the house all the time. People in long-term care, that is something special. It's something different to look at besides the same four walls. So we need to remember that even little things can make a big difference, just changing the scenery a little bit. So, and experiencing the outdoors now that we can. People really are probably going a little stir crazy. So it's time for us to get out more.
And I think when we look at that term community, many times we also think it always means going out, but it can also mean bringing in, you know, community coming into the facility as well. And, you know, I mean, I know COVID has kind of, you know, created havoc with a lot of that. But if you are, you know, let's be positive. We're getting back to that normal program of engagement for people. And, you know, I really do like to advocate for activity directors asking upon admission, what is it that you like to do? Is there any skills you'd like to learn? Lifelong learning is very important, especially as we age. We need to be able to continue to be provided with opportunities to learn. And it doesn't mean that that the building has to have an expert who knows how to pastel paint, but to reach out into the community and see if they can find somebody, a volunteer, to come in and teach people how to do that, if that's something I have an interest in learning to do. And that's where the challenge becomes. And we want to encourage all of you as residents to challenge your facilities to do those things, to say, I would love to learn how to do decoupage, like you mentioned, Candice. I've never done anything like that, or I did it when I was little. And the activity department might have no idea how to do that. It's kind of a a skill that people aren't using as much anymore. So to seek out and find out, is there somebody in the community that they come in, volunteer, and teach that to us and help to the people who live there and help support that growth, that engagement that doesn't just look the same from day to day, from day to day to day to day.
Exactly. And let me just tell you, I was a volunteer in nursing homes. I used to play ukulele, and God bless them, they didn't usually throw things at me. Now, once in a while they did, but you know, they were so gracious to me, people. So, and who doesn't love to see, I don't know, just different faces, you know? It's so good to have people, volunteers come in and have that intergenerational rapport happening, and just the feeling that the building is moving, right? So if it's always the same faces and it's always you going out and people never coming in, it creates a stagnancy. So if we can get the homes to have more volunteers coming in, doing different things, and like Lisa, we don't have to be good at it. I mean, just doing it is the fun part, right? So maybe it's best that we don't have experts there, because then we don't have to worry about color and inside the lines. So definitely seek volunteers. I think in a post-COVID world, hopefully people's hearts have opened to nursing homes and how they could help without necessarily going out and getting their nursing degree. It's to go, just to cultivate that volunteer team that can come in and just provide fresh faces, fresh energy, and something else to do.
And
But don't take away their bingo, I'm telling you.
Yeah. And because bingo is something that we all know how to, we know the expectation is very, we know what it's going to look like. So there's a huge comfort level with it. That's why.
And there's prizes.
Activity, yes. But I also think when we look at that community, one of the things that I've always encouraged for facilities is to remember that they do live in a community. So they're part of a community already. They shouldn't look at themselves as the facility who's been implanted into a community. They should say we're part of this community. And because of that, I know a lot of libraries, like you mentioned, they offer a litany of things. And my library in the town that I live in, they offer free movies every Monday at 10 o'clock. And they got the subtitles, and they offer free popcorn. What a great gig. You know, if you have a facility bus bringing people over to go watch that movie in the movie theater, at the library, have a thing of popcorn and watch the movie with the subtitles. I think it's such a great opportunity to make people more connected to the community that they are living in, because they are living in that community. And you'll see that there's Scrabble club, crocheting club, movies, speakers come in to talk about books or about history. And there can be some really wonderful opportunities to get more integrated into the community that you're living in as you enter into a long-term care facility. And again, talk to your activity directors about this stuff so that you can get those rights, so you don't feel like you're being stifled, that you feel like you're able to grow and expand upon yourself, even as we're aging, even as you're sick and you may not be feeling the greatest sometimes. It's still sometimes, you know, you get that mind busy and it makes you feel a little bit better and a little bit more productive.
May I interrupt for just a moment?
Absolutely, Teresa.
We have a couple of facilities in our area that are like out in the rural areas. So maybe a larger percentage of the audience, not that they had to be farmers before they moved into the facility, but when the harvest takes place or when they're planting the fields, it's an activity by opportunity. It just presents itself.
Oh, yeah.
And so the activity director takes all these farmers outside. They get to watch the harvest. They get to watch the planting of the field. Or once when I was in a facility, there were these people, it looked like children at Christmas time when their faces are pressed up to a window. They're watching through the window of the dining room as landscapers are planting flowers. Let them go outside and watch, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead and let them critique, you know, you're not digging enough, Sonny, you know, let them speak up, you know, be a part, that's their community. So when those flowers are being planted and we're hopefully coming into springtime where we're planting flowers, let them be out there and watch the whole activity, talk amongst themselves, tell them what you know, how he doesn't know what he's doing. He does know what he's doing. You know, he's abusing that plant. It's never going to make it. You know, they get actively involved in what's going on in their community, even if it's just idle conversation with their neighbor in the chair next to them.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful idea, you know, and then watch the garden grow, bring coffee outside and sit on the patio and talk about the plants and do some weeding. But this is what makes you feel more of a part of a community and also taps into that social piece. You know, we're talking about community and social. And that social piece, I think it's really important to, you know, to really expound upon what that really means for each individual. Not does it mean that we have a birthday party once a month.
Right.
Yeah. And we have a facility where they planted the garden at a level so that their residents who were in wheelchairs, it was a raised garden so that they could sit in their wheelchair and they could do the weeding and everything else and do the planting. So that was really good to get them involved in that as well.
What a great idea.
I was thinking about how the Ombudsman program has a statewide initiative and a local initiative. And I was thinking of how great it would be if the activity directors could have their own local initiative to really say, I want to integrate our residents, you know, into their community at large, and how could we do that? And it would be really neat to see whether a concentrated effort with little things like this could, I feel, help improve the quality of life. Because again, that intergenerational happenstance meeting, rather than always seeing the same 5 people at the same dinner table and somebody's grandkid comes in on Sunday. There's nothing like being in the community and happenstance, just, you know, meeting people and striking up conversations. And so I think it would be really great if there's anything, you know, I can do or inspiration wise, like maybe if you are an activity director out there or an administrator out there, support your activity director in creating this local initiative where your home goes into the community and becomes one. So I just think it's so mutually symbiotic.
It really is, because when we look at that social piece, I might be with my same table mates every day. So now we stop being from having social conversation and we be that we're family now sitting around the table. And sometimes that conversation can kind of so when you do that social event, just mixing it up every now and then and not have people meet different people or do some stimulating conversation around. We're going to talk about this topic. Everyone's going to share where they were born, and what, you know, what hospital they were born at and why they got their name or something. And just to get some conversation happening amongst people to expound upon this social piece that can happen naturally when you bring groups of people together, but sometimes has a tendency to get stagnant or to feel like it becomes rote, and to change that up a little bit and what that can look like for people. I think there might be a couple of questions, I'm not sure, in the chat. Stephen, were there any questions in the chat that we saw?
We had one a while back. Let me scroll up to it.
Okay.
And just so everyone knows, I did post all of our links in the chat. So if you've got want the Facebook page, YouTube channel, guidance, things like that, that's in there. I also posted the voting schedule for the upcoming primary. It is different this year. Normally it would be, I think March, April is when it would normally be, but this year it's in June because of MAP and COVID issues. So the info on that is in there. We had one question, what, if anything, is happening in regard to staffing shortages? And I don't know if Kelly's still on, or Lee, if you can answer that.
Georgiana, unmute yourself so you can tell us a little bit more. Is that in regards to activities and not having enough staff for engagement opportunities?
This was when Kelly was talking about the the statement from the White House and the governor's office. So this was long before any of that.
I'm back. I'm sorry, I was multitasking. What's the question?
What is being done in regards to staffing shortages? But I see Georgiana unmuted herself, so I'll let her answer or ask.
Well, in regards to the White House statement and Pritzker's statement, they're asking or demanding better ratios of staff to residents. But that's a huge problem, getting more staff because of Medicaid reimbursement rates. And so I wonder if there's anything being addressed in regards to staffing, paying people more so that we can get more staff. We can't do these activities without staff.
Absolutely, and that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked. HFS, Healthcare and Family Services, is actually really trying to push for changes related to staffing, and they have a proposal that they were trying to push through actually legislatively last spring that didn't pass as it relates to changes in the rate reform and reimbursement for Medicaid to incentivize the facilities in terms of trying to get better staffing for the residents. So there are a lot of different incentives that they're putting out in this proposal that would help in terms of increasing the staffing for nursing homes across the board. So there is something currently in the works. It just has not come to fruition yet.
Is it in the works for in the federal government or statewide?
No, this is the state of Illinois.
State of Illinois. Okay.
Yeah,
Well-
and we're kind of leading. The state of Illinois is kind of leading, from what I understand, is leading the charge as it relates to this. And a lot of the language that was in the proposed bill last year was, I think, shared with CMS, and that's some of the language that's in that fact sheet that I shared with you all a little while ago came from Illinois, actually, from HFS.
Jessica, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I think the other piece about the nursing home reform that we need to keep in mind is these are goals, and this is the direction we're heading. It's going to take some legislative action. There's going to be, those stepping stones that have to, I don't know, kind of like eating an elephant one bite at a time is what I'm thinking in my head. But it's encouraging that the White House is taking this position, but the reality that comes with that is it takes a lot of advocacy work and work by leadership and work by Congress, and the reform in Illinois will take action by our state legislature and our governor. So it's a goal that they're committed to working to, but it's going to take some time and some work and effort to get there. One of the things, Kelly, I don't remember if you touched on it, but just the piece that goes along with staffing that feels indirect, but I think it's more directly related, is the piece about transparency and ownership, and that piece of it, and looking at where's the money that the facilities are actually receiving going to, that could be going to pay better wages for staff or for more staff. It's an incredibly complex situation, and I in no way feel like I understand it all, but I think it's important to keep in mind that we want to get there. It's exciting that the White House has taken this stance and made this commitment, but we're at the cusp of moving that way.
Yeah, I was gonna mention the transparency and ownership issue too, Jessica. Like, if you look down the street at ABC Nursing Home, that's what you see. You see ABC Nursing Home, but in the office, it's Corporation A, Corporation B, Corporation C, and C is the one that's actively providing care to your residents, to your loved ones. But C is losing money because C is paying B for rent of the building, and they're paying A for management services or something like that. So transparency in ownership is, it's not going to fix everything in terms of making sure our residents get proper adequate staffing, but it's going to help kind of open the books a little bit.
And just for clarification, you tend to see that the complexity in for-profit facilities, it generally doesn't look like that in non-for-profits.
Yeah.
It's the for-profit facilities where it gets really complex to track down who owns what. So I'm kind of digressing a little bit, but it's a piece of the reform as a whole.
And I think that this is important because, you know, we've started off our conversation today then talking about voting. And, you know, and this voting and legislation and all of this, we're at a really, really pivotal time right now in our state, in our country, where long-term care is being looked at. And it's being looked at in what can be done to help. And the word you keep hearing is nursing home reform, really looking at how can things change here so that we don't wound up in a place where people have lost their autonomy, where they've lost their ability to be able to continue to have their rights as a United States citizen adhered to. And I think it's just such an important conversation. And I'm glad that we're able to talk about this on a forum like here, so that, because I'm a person who I think legislation, I can't do anything about that. You know, I'm a layman, I can't do anything. But not putting the connections all together. As a person who lives in this country, and if I live in a long-term care facility, I need to understand those things that are important to me. And this is a very important to me, because if I'm living in a long-term care facility, someone else is dictating what the rules are, what that looks like. And I need to make sure that I'm voting for those people who stand for what I want. And I think that this is where it brings this conversation all together so that we can really make sure that we are being empowered Americans and empowered elders and empowered residents and empowered families, so that we can really have our future needs met as we go through this long-term care continuum. And it's complicated. There's a lot of layers to it. There's no easy fix to any of this. And, you know, I think it's just so important that we finally are seeing some attention and legislation really happening in that direction. We do have thoughts about doing a resident family support council meeting where we talk about some of the legislation that's out there, that's passed, so that make people aware, so that you can kind of get a greater feeling for what's happening out there in our state and in our country. Do we have any other?
I was just going to say one other thing. I just put a link in the chat, but as we were talking, I had a message pop up in my inbox, and it was a link to the National Consumer Voice website. And they have a link you just can click on, and it will help you send a letter to the president related to this nursing home reform stance. So I dropped that link in the chat if people are interested in an easy way to support the message.
Oh, thank you for that. And that's, I think, again, it's really important because those things make a lot of difference to those legislators out there. How would we find out? How would I find out who my legislator is? What would be the process for me doing that?
Oh, he just put it in the thing.
Yeah. So
You're fast, Steven. You are fast.
I was already looking it up when you asked. So somebody had mentioned back here, Nancy Vincent had mentioned In the meantime, reach out to your entire team, your workplace, leading activities, housekeeper, CEO, HR, reach out to them about the problems of low staffing, reach out to them with ideas. But then, and of course, reach out to the White House and thank them for their position, but also reach out to your legislators because they have to vote on these things.
So that link that you put in there, I'd be able to find out who my legislator is in my area.
Yep, you just simply put in your address, and when you put in your address, it will show you, it starts with state first. So it'll have your state representative and your state senator, and then right below it has federal. So it'll have your 2 senators and your congressional representative. So little civics lesson. So we have the state legislature. So everyone has a senator and a representative that represents your area at the state level. And then at the federal level, we have 2 state senators, and then you'll have 1 representative from your district at the federal level.
Okay, thank you. Because that will really be helpful for me to be able to do something as a resident or a family member to feel more empowered and really enact upon my rights as a United States citizen. And
I think Candice mentioned having someone come in, from the community to talk about, before the election to just, kind of explain what's on the ballot and those types of things. I've also seen situations where maybe it's a mayoral race and the candidates come to the facility and, talk to the residents. So just being civic minded, playing that part that we all should be doing. And some of us take it for granted more than others. But that's an opportunity that you have regardless of where you live. And so that, again, that's something, it doesn't go away just because you move into a long-term care facility.
yeah, and I think sometimes people forget about that. They forget that they can still vote. And I really do. So I'm really glad that we've had these reminders today for this, especially since the election is changed, which the primaries are going to be in June, you said, correct, Stephen?
Yes, June 28th.
June 28th. So I think that gives us plenty of time to be able to make sure that we are registered. And some people you may have moved to the state because you're either caring for a loved one or you're aging and you want to move into a state where you have your family members around. So get on it, get registered, and make sure that you are adhering to those rights. So today's conversation, is talking about starting off with that great news that we got from Kelly, and then Candice for really sharing and some ideas about how we could go ahead and make sure that we're registered to vote, that we get our voting rights adhered to. Talking about religion and what does that really mean? And just a little sidebar, it also involves that spirituality piece. So if you have spirituality needs that might look different than going to church, you have to make sure that those needs get met as well. Such as I know there's people that start off the day meditating. Or end the day in meditation. Those are your spirituality needs that you need to be able to continue to have. And so talk to the facility about it, see how those needs can continue to be met. And you may find that there's even more people like you who want the same thing, and they may create a space where it's quiet every morning so that people can have that opportunity to be able to get that spiritual need met. Especially as these baby boomers are coming into the long-term care facilities, we might see what spirituality may really change because of that. And then moving on and talking about the whole community and social, I think a couple of key messages really came out of this. One was that the nursing home or the long-term care facility is a part of a community at large, and to make sure that they feel a part of that community at large, whether it's being able to go out, whether it's being able to have the community come in, whether it's being able to seek out volunteers that can help lead in programming, to help interconnect people. Do you have a resident who could be able to lead in a group to be able to create some more social, to change the way that social looks? There was another piece that I wanted to bring up regarding that bringing the community in and social kind of in the same breath. If you are somebody who was highly involved in a book group before you went into the rehab facility, for example, and you had a book group every week, and you can no longer do it because you're in the rehab facility, you can still do it. Find out if the book club can come and meet in the nursing home, in your rehab facility. You know, and most nursing homes have at least a conference room, and it's usually not being used at 7, 8 o'clock at night. And this could be a wonderful time where you could invite your friends in, get a pot of coffee, and be able to continue to have that connection with your friends, with your community, and that social aspect, and be able to connect with those that are important to you and have that normalcy added to your life, that book club. If you were a guy who got together on Friday night and did poker with your buddies, same opportunity. You should be able to have that opportunity to have them come in, because you may not be well enough to leave the building for that. But you can seek it out. It doesn't hurt to ask. You have those rights. So make sure that people listen to you and get creative in how your community and social needs get met. I think that that's really the message that Candice was really helping us understand today. So thank you with that, Candice. Do we have any other questions? I want to let everybody know we're going to continue this conversation. And next time we're going to be diving more into what your rights to be able to see the reports, the surveys, your right to be able to compliance to the facility compliance, your right to be able to have any community representatives that can help advocate for you, such as the ombudsman. We're going to be diving into those rights a little bit deeper. And we have a community ombudsman is going to be helping us to lead that conversation next time. So
I have a question.
Absolutely.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mary
Hi.
Jo. I'm with Hospice of Southern Illinois. Hi there.
Hi,
Is
Mary Jo.
anybody looking into, I'm sure you're experiencing it as well, the escalation of costs, specifically, for instance, nurse and nurses aides? You know, they're leaving, they're going to agency, they're getting paid 3 times what they had been getting paid. Yay, of course they have to pay taxes, but thus the nursing homes are getting billed exorbitantly. This can't be sustainable. Is there anything in the works for that? I mean, so that we could possibly get a hold, I don't know, that falls under long-term care. What did you say? Reform. I because that's a recent thing. I don't know, just wondering. I'll sign off.
No, Mary Jo, that's a good question. I know, because that's been a lot of the buzz out there has been they need to be paid more. You know, there's a lot of work around it. People are saying that a lot. And I don't know of any individualized legislation out there right now that's addressing this in that formalized manner. I do know, like they were talking about incentives to facilities for staffing. So that then the facilities would then be empowered to look at how they can redesign things, because to get those staff come in, what do they need to do? And if it means raising their money, either their salaries or their hourly rates that they're giving to people, that might be part of what happens. But that's one reason why I know they're looking at this incentive program to be able to afford to pay people more as well. I think that transparency to ownership is part of this whole piece of trying to figure out where the money is going. Jessica, do you want to elaborate some more?
I can't find the bill number, and I don't think that I don't know what happened to it, but there was a bill introduced in the state legislature this year that was trying to restrict or address what you're talking about. And if you want to send me an email, I can try and dig and find that piece of legislation specifically. I can't remember if it limited the cost that a facility could be charged for an agency staff member or something like that. But it was addressing, I don't know that it would have solved the problem, but it was trying to get at this particular issue. So again, I don't have it in my the list of bills that we're actively tracking, so I'm not sure that it made it out of its respective chamber before the deadline, but it's on the radar of some legislators, I guess I will say that unfortunately that doesn't get us anywhere if the bill doesn't pass. I'll drop my email in the chat, so who asked that question is welcome to email me.
Yeah, Mary
Oh,
Jo.
I see it. I see it now, Lisa.
Okay. Yes, and if you want to make sure that you, if you can always email me too, and I can connect you and Jessica together. Does anybody else have any other questions? While you're doing that, I'm just going to launch the poll while anyone's thinking about any questions that they may have. If you could go ahead, this is really helpful for us. If you could please complete this, and if you can put your zip code into the chat, and if you have more than one person participating in this with you, if you could put that in there as well. So, thank you. And if there's, I don't know, I think you can answer, you can click on more than one for please select all items that pertain to you. I think you can click on more than one there. So if you, you know, are a long-term care resident, but you also have a family member who's also in long-term care, you could click on both of them. Okay, I'm going to go ahead then. And one last reminder, if you could just please answer the poll, that would be great. Oh, yes, that's a good idea. I'll add another. I thought I had another in there. But I will.
Hello.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hi,
Hi. You have a question?
what you doing?
Oh, somebody needs to be on mute. But you were talking to us. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end the poll. Thank you for this. And with that, we'll go ahead and I'll end the recording of the meeting right now. But like we always do is we'll stay on. I'll be staying on in case anybody has anything else that they would like to bring up.